We know the importance of living things that we can see with our naked eyes to the balance of the ecosystem. But we often forget about those little tiny living things called the microbial populations. They have served the biggest importance in the living things, despite being the smallest organisms in the world. Have you ever imagined what would happen to the world, what would happen to the living things if there was no microbes? Will dead things be decayed? Will the grass be green? Can water flow clean? Can cows digest food? So let's talk about ruminants. How does these little mighty microbes helps ruminants to live the life that they are living now? Let's meet Dr. To Be, Miss F, to explain a little bit about what happens in rumen.
Hi, I'm Fazira, Dr. To Be. Okay, today we are going to talk about ruminant. Okay, after so many research papers that I have to read, I'm going to introduce you the ruminant stomach. Okay, this is the ruminant stomach that we know consists of 4 compartments, which is omasum, reticulum, and the small intestine.
The rumen of the ruminant are host to billions of microbes that helps digest food into proteins and nutrients to the cows. The populations of microbes in rumens can easily outnumber the populations of humans on the planet. That's how many microbes that's in the rumen. So Miss A, can you explain how does the microbes in rumen help in digestion of food for the cows?
Okay, at first, the food will enter at the mouth of the cow, which is as it will pass through the esophagus, and then it will go to the reticulum and rumen. So when the contraction happens, it will push out the solid and the liquid. For example, solid into the rumen, and then for the liquid into the reticulum. And then the cellulose degrading bacteria will help to digest this particle to as a nutrient, and then it will the solid and the liquid, and then the liquid will go back to the mouth of the cow to be chewed again, and then the same process happen at the rumen and the reticulum, and then it will pass through the omasum, and then to the abomasum, and then to the small intestine to further digestion. Okay.
Rumens are the host to different species of bacteria, protozoas, and fungi. There is a unique symbiotic relationship between the ruminants and the microbes in the rumen, and there's also symbiotic relationships between the microbes in the rumen itself. The ruminant act as a host by providing a suitable environment and nutrients to the microbes. In return, the microbes will digest the foods and provide the cows with essential nutrients such as microbial proteins and also energy sources. The microbial populations consist of interacting complex of bacteria, protozoa, and fungi. The bacteria makes up the largest number and also the most diverse microbial population in the rumens. There are different genuses of bacteria in the rumen, and some has been already researched, such as Ruminococcus and Streptococcus. Now, let's meet Professor Dr. Seo Chin Chin, a lecturer from Microbiology Department, to talk about the symbiotic relationships between the rumen and the microbial populations in the rumen itself.
Okay, as you know, ruminants, they are forage degraders. They consume a lot of cellulosic material, and these materials are basically basically very difficult to be degraded. Like we all humans, it's impossible for us to degrade the cellulose material. So in the stomach of the ruminants, as we know they have got 4 stomachs, it contains a lot of microorganisms in their stomach, which helps with the degradation of this cellulosic material. So these microorganisms, the main ones will be the fungi, the bacteria, and also the protozoa. So these 3 main populations, they will actually interact with one another together with the host to degrade the cellulosic material. So basically the microbial populations, they will degrade the cellulosic material and the host will absorb the degraded nutrients. At the same time, the host will provide a suitable habitat for the microorganisms to survive.
What are the specific functions of microorganisms in the rumen?
They have got various kind of functions. So depending on what you're focusing on. Of course, their main function is to degrade the cellulosic material. But if you're talking about starch degraders, they also have. If you're talking about carbohydrate degraders, they also have. Mechanogens, they also have.
Here are some of the examples of microbes in the ruminants and their functions. What will happen if there is no cellulose degraded bacteria in the ruminant? Will it affect the ruminant?
Definitely it will, because if there is no or very little cellulosic microorganisms in the ruminant, so what will happen is that the nutrients that are consumed cannot be degraded. So normally the animals, they have to absorb simple nutrients. So without the cellulose degraders, the cellulose cannot be degraded into simple nutrients, and therefore the animals cannot get the nutrients.
Does manipulating a rumen microbial fermentation helps in reducing the production of methane gas?
If you manipulate the microbial populations, it will definitely reduce the methane production from the animals. In fact, this is also one of the focus in our laboratory, in which what we try to do is we actually feed the animals with a specific kind of grass, and we found that after we fed the animals with this specific kind of grass, the methane production is lesser. And this is associated with the reduced populations of the mechanogens in the rumen of the ruminants.
So imagine the life of ruminants without microbes. As what Faz has already mentioned to you about, there are many types of different microbes in the ruminant. No, wait, in the rumen. Yeah. But anyway, there's a lot of different microbes that is important to cows. So, do you know that there are actually 70% of the microbes that are not identified yet in the rumen's stomach? And student. So anyway, I'll talk to you about Ruminococcus albus and Ruminococcus fabrificin, which is actually the main or the most studied microbes in the ruminant. So as you can see, Ruminococcus, they are mostly gram-positive, and they are named Ruminococcus because it's most found, or at least make up most of the bacteria in the stomach itself. And you can see that its function is to degrade cellulose, because that's what they do, degrade cellulose to glucose. Moving on, and you do know that if you don't have these particular microbes to degrade all this food in cows, cows will be getting 15% less nutrients than they're supposed to. They will be having like unhealthy cows and skinny cows and really bad cows. So you see how important microbes are? And also, microbes are very important in reducing the methanogen amount in the cow itself. And you see, nowadays we see cows that are being fed with pellets and also feeds that are already provided to them instead of grass and green stuffs, right? So you see, when you have different feed, different microbes will act on it. If you actually feed the cow with grass or you feed the cow with leaves, more cellulose have to be degraded. So when cellulose are being degraded, more methane are being produced. And more methane are being produced, more carbon or greenhouse effect will be caused by it, right? So that is not good. So through research, it is found that carbs actually, or microbes that actually degrade or break down carbohydrates, are the one who produce less methanogens. So we see when you actually feed high carbs food to the cow, less methanogens are being produced, and it actually saves the environment. So we see that how microbes actually play a lot of roles, or a lot of main roles in the cow itself. If we don't have this, no cows. The end.
No food.
Yes, so you get our point, right? Microbes do play vital roles in our environment and also our daily lives because it always helps us to survive. Without them, we won't be able to live. So, let me ask you a question. Can you imagine a life without microbes?